Welcome, Summoners, to Games Cast by PanderNyrl. If you wish to see more commented games, follow my social media pages below. Looks like we are into the second game of Copenhagen Wolves versus Millenium. I'm not sure what exactly Millenium is going to do this game to switch it up from the first one. Other than just picking different champions and saying, we just never got our combo off. And then playing a little bit better. Because they had a good opportunity to win game number 1. But they could just never land that full combo on Copenhagen Wolves and really finish that fight off on Millenium's side of things. Looks like they do decide to ban Shen, a very wise decision. Shen was a real problem in the first game, as he did allow the Wolves to just roam around the map freely, and he really punished several key mistakes by Millenium throughout the game. Especially early on, the second he level 6, he popped an ultimate off and went all the way down bottom, saving Lulu and picking up Ezreal a double kill. Looks like we are going to have Wukong, Evelynn, and Olaf banned out, all fairly standard bans. We saw all these champions banned out in game number 1. The only difference is I'm not sure we're going to see a Kayle ban, and I do think Kayle is going to have to be picked up by Wolves here if they want, because I do believe Tabzz plays a pretty mean Kayle, as I do think Kayle would be a pretty good ban out here, so Wolves don't pick him up. But it is going to be Cho'Gath. They don't want to see that Cho'Gath jungle again. An interesting choice, leaving up several champions, and that will be a Kha'Zix. Though I do expect to see a Kayle immediately picked up over here, as Kayle is one of the stronger champions, and Kha'Zix is another really strong champion that was banned out, and those were the two different bans, as Shen and Cho'Gath were banned out this time. Kha'Zix just such a good champion at roaming around the map and really punishing people for being out of position and not near someone else. Because he can jump in there with his isolation and just destroy people with his real high damage. Though the good thing about Kayle pickup is she does have the ability to ultimate someone and prevent some of that burst damage coming out from Kha'Zix. If she can prevent the burst damage, Kha'Zix might be neutralized for at least a fight or two. But let's see what actually happens, as basically I think Kha'Zix is going to win this game just because it's Kha'Zix. I don't think we've ever seen a Kha'Zix lose this tournament, and he's just been such a good champion. It looks like Millenium will be picking up Ezreal and Kayle, not wanting to see Ezreal in the hands of Wolves this time. He is basically a very safe AD carry, and he can do basically everything except crowd control, but I don't think he needs to crowd control if you have enough coming around from the rest of the team. Looks like we are going to see a Zyra pick up, as she's basically been the go-to support. Right behind her is Lulu and a little bit of Sona, and those have basically been the three supports that have rotated the entire tournament. There have been one or two Tarics and one or two Sorakas, and I think we even saw Janna in there one game, but those have been the primary two. And it wouldn't be surprising to see her being picked up here. She did a very good job in the first game for the side of Millenium, just landing those roots and really getting people low, but she just wasn't able to finish anyone off, as the Shen ultimate stopped her every single time, and it almost felt like she baited her team into those Shen ultimates. And it will be Lee Sin picked up. I think that's a great choice here, as it synergizes incredibly well with Kha'Zix. Lee Sin can just jump in after Kha'Zix jumps in, then throw out the burst combo together and just destroy someone in a fight. It also means that Lee Sin is going to want to control the early game and keep people like Ezreal or Kayle from reaching their full potential. Looks like Millenium will be picking up Lulu. No real surprise there. Xin Zhao is also be a very good choice here, as he could go top or jungle at this point. And he's just a really good champion in this patch, as he does have the ability to just jump in and kill the backline champion and disperse the team fight. That's something Millenium didn't have in the first game. They didn't have a real good way to get to the backline of Copenhagen, and other than someone like Jax jumping in, but as soon as he jumped in, he couldn't get the stun on Ezreal because he would be hit with the Lulu ultimate and the Morgana Black Shield. But it looks like it will be Jax. He didn't work out very well in the first game, but he will have a different opponent this time and might do a little bit better. He could see Kha'Zix up top, he could see Lee Sin as well, or someone who has not been picked yet, as Copenhagen still needs a support or not support, an AD carry or a jungler. Could even be him support and AD carry if they want to go Caitlyn Nunu, which I wouldn't be complain too much about. Is that would mean Kha'Zix would likely be top, Zyra in the mid lane, and Lee Sin in the jungle, with Lee Sin and Kha'Zix being able to switch out to either one. And I think that would be a pretty good choice here, as Zyra has enough burst damage to really contend with Kayle, and she has enough consistent damage in her plants that Kayle won't be able to stop all her damage during the ultimate like some AD carries. Would also give them an incredible amount of damage. And I think Copenhagen Wolves kind of tricked Millenium there, and thinking that Zyra was going to be the support, but instead Zyra's going to be the mid lane, and we do see a Fizz coming out. Fizz did not work out very well last time, and it will be a Kayle in the jungle, more than likely. I just don't think the Fizz did a very good job that first game of moving around the map. He was stunted by Shin several times, and I'm not sure exactly why they're going to go back to him, as I do think Kayle would have been a better choice in mid, and they could have picked up something kind of tanky to go in the jungle, as they were just lacking a tank on the Millenium side of things. Copenhagen has a fairly tanky Lee Sin, Nunu's pretty tanky, and Kha'Zix can usually get pretty tanky if he snowballs into a good early game. But I definitely have to give the advantage at picks and bans to the Copenhagen Wolves, but we will see how Millenium does, as they do have a very strong team comp, and if they can put it all together, they're going to do an amazing job. Question is, can they put everything together this game, where we saw them just being a little bit off last game and got punished for it incredibly hard? The big thing Copenhagen Wolves doesn't have this time is the ability to split push. They do have Lee Sin and Kha'Zix who can try, but it's not like Shin where you can enter the fight from a long way away. Looks like we are into the game, and we are going to see both sides coming out with a large number of wards and potions, which has been fairly standard throughout the entire tournament. And we are going to have a pause, not sure exactly what's up, but we will see in just a moment. Okay, and we are back. That was not a very long pause, not sure exactly what was up. Likely just someone had a hardware issue, or just needed a glass of water or something, who knows. Looks like we are going to have Millenium trying to do a slight invade this time. They tried to do it last time, but were spotted out right away by Ezreal. And Caitlyn doing the exact same thing she did last game. A really good job of just scouting him out. They might try and just flash over this wall for a kill, but I think Caitlyn has a distinct advantage, as she does have the ability to just flash away the second anything happens. I think she's basically ready to, as she does spot them out. I don't think they're going to be able to get away. She does pick up her net first, and that means Jax won't be able to get onto her. Nunu throws out the Blood Boil, and Caitlyn will get away scot-free, though this time Millenium is actually invading, and will be spotted out. Looks like there might be a team fight as we do see Zyra Roots landing onto Jax. And another ward thrown down, as Millenium really wants to control this bottom side jungle and not let Caitlyn Nunu get off to a good start. Looks like Millenium has recognized that they're backing up thanks to a ward, thanks to the fact Zyra is sitting here and does throw the ward out. Question is, will Zyra spot him? I don't think she will. And Lee Sin will be forced to start blue buff. Not a terrible thing if you're Lee Sin, though it does mean you're not going to get that early gank. It looks like Millenium is now going to be invading into the red buff, as two wards sit there for the side of Wolves, and they will be spotted out. Very good wards, as you do see Lee Sin and Kha'Zix likely going to go try and take this red buff away, or get the first blood onto Jax, as we do see Kayle picking up the red buff. Kayle, it will be in the jungle this game. And it looks like Nunu and Caitlyn decided to go down bottom, as we do see Lee Sin taking this red buff along with Kha'Zix. And he will be slightly caught out, though Zyra is going to be engaged on by Fizz, and that is an engagement that Fizz will win early, as Fizz is level 1 damage, is some of the highest in the game. He also has Kayle in the area, and it looks like Millenium is looking to really play aggressively and snowball this game, where they just didn't get the opportunity last time. And Fizz with an early 2 should be able to apply a lot of pressure to the Zyra, though a nice set of roots keeps them at bay for just a moment. Kayle going to take a tower shot there, and Lee Sin doing the wise decision of just going right behind her for a few moments and making sure that if someone tried to jump in on her, nothing was going to happen. Lee Sin is going to be slightly ahead of Kayle here, as he is going to be picking up this blue buff, though Kayle did get a lot of experience from the mid lane. Lee Sin has managed to steal the red buff away and not kill the minions, which is the big difference, which means that the red buff on the Millenium side of things won't be respawning for a long time, while the one for Wolves will be spawning at the regular time. We do see Zyra trying to throw out some harassment onto Fizz, but I think Fizz is going to win that engagement as he can just jump away at any point. Kha'Zix will be up top and is going to have a pretty good time against Jax. Both of them are pretty good duelists, but Kha'Zix has a little bit more sustained early game and the ability to poke from a distance. Looks like we are going to have Lee Sin coming in for a gank, as Jax does pop his stun, and that will mean that Lee Sin can get in there for just a few moments. Zyra coming up through the woods. I don't believe she was spotted out, as we are going to see a big gank coming in. And it looks like Jax has slightly recognized it as Kha'Zix jumps in, applies the slow, does not get the root off, but here comes Lee Sin, teleport coming in from Fizz, and it will be a 3v3 fight. But it looks like no one will go down, as Lee Sin is getting fairly low and does decide to just flash away. And it looks like Millenium is getting the better of this engagement, as we do see Lee Sin throwing out the resonating strike. Nothing is going down, as we do see Kha'Zix getting fairly low, but both parties just getting low. And that is a slight win for the Wolf side of things. Even though they are a little bit lower in health, they got the Fizz teleport out, and that means he won't be able to pressure the map for the next few minutes. Zyra did not have to burn her teleport there, though Kayle is pressuring this top lane fairly hard. And it looks like they have gotten an early level 4 on both the jungler and top laner, which should translate in something good if they can actually rotate around and make it happen. But I don't think they're going to be able to, as Jax is going to be going back to base. He has picked up a Doran's Blade, and both teams are perfectly even, as Zyra is just going to continue to try and harass down this Fizz. Fizz does have enough potions that he can basically sit in lane as long as he wants. Zyra is not applying any real heavy damage to him. And looks like the Wolves are getting a slight advantage down bottom, though Caitlyn is out of potions at this point in time. Caitlyn Nunu will scale slightly better than Ezreal Lulu. Not a significant amount, but enough that there could be a little bit of a difference in a team fight. Caitlyn's advantage of just staying far away is really important, especially if she can dodge something like the Fizz jumping in there or Jax jumping on her. And it looks like we are going to have Lee Sin coming down bottom. I don't think he actually wants to get a gank off at this point in time, looking to just pick up the double golems and kind of play protection, as they do see Caitlyn Nunu getting fairly low. Lulu will be trying to go in there, as we do see Kayle running in the mid lane and looking to push, as we looks like Fizz and Kayle are both going to go back at this point in time. We see Kha'Zix going back, not opting for the early tier of the goddess, opting for more of an early game build with a Doran's Blade and Longsword. Likely to turn that Longsword into a Vampiric Scepter soon, as we see Caitlyn picking up a Doran's Blade and Vampiric Scepter. Zyra picking up double Doran's Rings, Fizz with the double Doran's Rings well, and Kayle building a bunch of attack speed with the early Berserker's Greaves. Kha'Zix getting the best of Jax up top, as he just continuously applies pressure to him, and every single chance he gets, he just harasses and slightly pushes the lane, as he can do so from a distance fairly easily. And as soon as Kha'Zix runs out of mana, Jax is going to have a time to strike, and Kha'Zix is running out of mana pretty quickly. Looks like Kayle is looking to push the mid lane, as she is one of the highest farmers in the game at this point in time. And it looks like we are going to see them likely rotate down bottom, though there is a ward placed out. Red buff will be respawning in about 10 seconds or so, as we do see them waiting it out and likely going to try and ambush Lee Sin when he does so. There is the red free spawn, and it will be taken out by Lee Sin, or taken out by Kayle and Fizz. Lee Sin not having an opportunity to do so. Looks like we do have Kayle and Fizz hitting level 6 from that, and they are looking to jump onto Zyra. I do think Zyra knows something's up, as she does spot them and runs perfectly away. Kayle does throw out that, and she will be forced to flash. Zyra not in a good position. She is hit with a fish and will be going down here for first blood. There's nothing she can do to escape this gank, as it was beautifully executed by Fizz and Kayle. Just baiting Zyra to flash the wrong way and use it early. She should have just run back to tower and flashed into it. That would have been the smart decision. But she instead tried to get away without having to burn her flash. Nunu taking a whole lot of damage from this Lulu and Ezreal, as Ezreal's gotten a pretty significant advantage down bottom. And it's really going in the favor of Millenium down here, as Caitlyn just not getting the farm she really needs. It looks like Kayle and Fizz will be stealing this blue buff away as Zyra does come down bottom. Exhaust thrown out onto Lulu, as she will be taken fairly low. Ultimate from Ezreal does fly, and Lulu does jump over the wall, but she will be picked up by Zyra and the plant hitting her at the last second. Lee Sin coming down to do Dragon, as they do see Kha'Zix in a lot of trouble, and he will not be able to jump away. And this will mean the bottom Dragon will go down, and likely another tower if the Wolves decide to push, as they do see 3 up top at this point in time. I expect they'll all go rotate mid lane, and that looks to be exactly what they're doing, unless they want to try and ambush Fizz and Kayle, but I don't think that's such a great idea, as Kayle and Jax should easily be able to get out of there. But yeah, this is exactly what Millenium needs to do. This game is basically tied up at this point, especially once this tower goes down. It'll be perfectly even, and a very nice rotation in by the Copenhagen Wolves. Fizz is trying to get down there as fast as he can, but Lee Sin and Zyra are just doing too much damage with that stacked up minion wave, and that will mean towers are in the favor of, well, actually they're going to be completely even, but the Dragon was picked up by Wolves, and that's exactly what they needed to get back in this game. They are down 1 kill, but that Dragon is worth far more than 1 kill. Ezreal has opted for the Vampiric Scepter and Doran's Blade, as we do see Jax likely going for that early Blade of the Rune King. We do see Ezreal picking up a pickaxe, could be going for an Infinity Edge, as we have seen Infinity Edges coming out several times as a first item on Ezreal. And that's what I thought the Wolves would build the first game, but they decided to go Bloodthirster. This time I do think it's going to be an Infinity Edge, as I don't think he wants to pick up an early Last Whisper, as I don't foresee a whole lot of armor coming out on the Wolf side of things, outside of Lee Sin possibly picking up something like a Wriggle's Lantern, or possibly even a Sunfire Cape. Looks like Jax is doing a much better job this game of farming and not dying. He is ahead of Kha'Zix pretty significantly in terms of CS, and does have that 1 assist in his belt. The gold lead isn't a whole lot thanks to the global objectives picked up. Problem is Kha'Zix can't roam when that tower down. He has to sit up there and defend it the entire time, and the second he wants to go roam around the map, he just is going to be pushed down even harder. It looks like we do have Zyra trying to do some damage to Fizz, but Kayle will be coming in this mid lane. Fish does fly as Zyra does get knocked up and will be taken fairly low, but there's the Kayle ultimate saving her, and Fizz will be able to pick up that kill. And this is the problem with letting Fizz roam around, and Fizz will be taken down by Lee Sin, as we don't get to see it thanks to the fact that there was another fight going down bottom and Caitlyn getting very low. And this is the Millenium team we really wanted to see in the first game, playing hyper aggressive, contesting everything on the map. And it looks like that Kayle pick was exactly what they needed to do so. And I expect Kayle to be banned out next game, no questions asked, if there is another game. Looks like Zyra is picking up the needlessly large rod. And she's just not done a very good job of keeping this Fizz in check. Fizz has been able to free farm the entire time, roam around the map and pick up kills, as we do see Kha'Zix jumping in onto Jax. Jax will be able to pop the stun and keep Kha'Zix away. Question is, will Jax be forced to flash? He does have his flash available. Kha'Zix does the counter flash. And it looks like Kayle is in the area. Lee Sin coming up as well. Will Lee Sin be able to jump in? No, Jax does jump away just in time, as Lee Sin is taken fairly low by Fizz. Ultimate does come out, and Fizz will be in a whole lot of trouble here as Kha'Zix jumps in on him. Zyra plants in the area as well, and Fizz will be going down to Kha'Zix at some point in the near future. Fizz does land the ultimate, but Lee Sin is there to pick up the kill on the back end, evening the score at 3-3, and the gold being perfectly even at 16,400. Caitlyn and Nunu will be able to really hurt this tower, as that's a pretty big minion wave, and there is a cannon minion with them, which means this tower is going to actually go down and put Wolves in the lead. And that's a very good job of really making the best of a bad situation bottom, as they are down pretty significantly, as Ezreal is taken fairly low and his Lulu ultimate is forced out. Nunu doing a great job of absorbing that damage instead of it going to Caitlyn, as Nunu has significantly more health. Fizz is going to be able to jump in here and likely pick up Caitlyn, but no, Caitlyn flashes away after Fizz jumps across. Ultimate from Ezreal does fly, but it is not enough. Fizz in fairly low health, and the Ice Blast will keep him away. Beautiful job there by Nunu of just moving in just enough to land your abilities, then backing off. Not taking too much damage, not taking too little damage, but just right. Looks like we are going to see Caitlyn finishing off the Bloodthirster. as we do see Lee Sin picking up the Giant's Belt. Tier the Goddess picked up onto Kha'Zix. In addition to the Brutalizer, Kayle likely going to be picking up this mid tower, unless Zyra can get there in time, though I don't think she will. Though it was fairly close. And this Kayle has been a real terror this game, as she is going to likely have that Nashor's Dupe up fairly soon, and it looks like Millenium will be able to steal this blue buff away, because I don't see any way they can really pick it up unless they just get a miraculous steal on it from Kha'Zix. As we do see Kha'Zix jumping in onto Jax, and they are going to just continue to duke it out. Though with Zyra in the area, the ultimates do fly from Kayle, and that means that Zyra will be able to hit by the fish and likely taken down here, as she has just not had a very good game. Kayle flashes off on the sides. Lee Sin does come in. Zyra passive does hit 2, and she does go down again, and this Zyra has not been very effective, especially against Fizz, as Fizz can just jump over all the abilities that he has. Though this Lee Sin has done a very good job this game of applying pressure. He's not farmed as well as Kayle, though. Kayle's sitting at 90 minions, one of the highest farmers in the game, and doing an absolutely great job of terrorizing the entire enemy team. Looks like Jax has picked up that Blade of the Ruined King, as we do see Wriggle's Lantern completed up onto Lee Sin. Infinity Edge soon to be out onto Ezreal. Sheen and Lichbane soon to be picked up by Fizz, and Kayle left Nather's Tooth in no time at all. Looks like we are going to have the Wolves decide to group up in the mid lane, likely because Dragon will be respawning fairly soon. I think it's there we go, just respawned, and I do believe both sides are going to contest for it, as Millenium does know where it is, though we are going to see Jax getting fairly low before the fight even begins. Kha'Zix does jump in there and gets stunned, but Lee Sin is in the area, and that will be Jax going very low. Though thanks to the Kayle ultimate, he does live, but that means Kayle ultimate is down, and this should be a very free Dragon. As without Jax and the Kayle ultimate, you really can't fight on the side of Millenium. They need those two to really win this fight, unless they want to go in 4v5 without one of their major ultimates. Looks like the Dragon was taken by Lee Sin. Nunu getting fairly low, but doing an excellent job of just zoning out the enemy team. Lee Sin tries to land a kick onto Ezreal, but not in range, as the Wolves even up the score. Basically perfectly even on gold, sitting at 21,000 apiece. The question is, who's going to have the better late game? And I really can't tell you at this point, as I do think Kayle and Fizz are going to have a great time if they can actually get onto Caitlyn. But if Caitlyn can sit back there and continue to auto-attack with a Nunu Blood Boil on, she is going to win this game out. Though that is going to be a real big task, as Fizz and Jax could easily jump in on her and apply a lot of pressure to her and make her forced to run around the entire time without doing damage. Looks like we are going to see Kha'Zix jumping in on a Jax for a good bit of damage. Though I do think Jax is going to beat the best of him, as Kha'Zix just was not in a healthy position there. He tried to get an ambush off, but just was not successful. Zyra in the area and likely to be attacked, as we do see Fizz in the area. Lee Sin will land the kick on him, but Fizz will just jump away. Looks like Lee Sin does use his ultimate to knock Jax back, but Jax will just jump away. Lee Sin jumping on him and will be stunned as they continue to pursue up top in a 2v3 situation, but the Wolves will be forced back, considering there is no one mid lane and Kayle is looking to push. They just didn't have the ability to get on to Fizz and stay on him. Looks like we are going to have Lulu hit by the trap down bottom. Nunu ultimate does fly, as we do see the barrier popped by Caitlyn. Ezreal in a good bit of trouble, but he still has his barrier, which is the big advantage here. Fizz does not have his teleport, and we do see a flash by Ezreal. Caitlyn getting fairly low and is taken out, but takes Lulu out in the process. And that is a win for Millenium, as they do trade fairly favorably, though Kayle in a lot of trouble in this mid lane, as Lee Sin is doing a whole lot of damage, but not enough, as he does not have enough mana or energy for his slow. Looks like he's still going to pursue and does flash forward. Actually does land the slow in addition to the red buff, and Zyra will be in the area for a good bit of damage. The roots do not land, as we do see Ezreal take down that bottom turret, and Lee Sin continuing to try and chase. Though I'm not sure how effective it is. Zyra going to be using her teleport to come down bottom and try and get onto Ezreal, but it is not enough. She does get the slow, though, so that might mean she's going to be in range, as the plants do finish off Ezreal, but Fizz does take a turret up top, bringing Millenium into the lead, up 4 turrets to 2, and the kills are basically even. They are farming slightly better around the map, as we do see a Zephyr as the first item picked up by Kayle. Very interesting choice as the first item. I for sure thought she was going to go for something like the Nashor's Tooth, as the Nashor's Tooth is just a very popular item on Kayle's first pick. Our first item. Looks like Fizz is going to be jumping down bottom with his teleport. Zyra is in a whole lot of trouble as she will be taken down here. She does not have the tools to escape, as Fizz just bursts her down yet again. And I do think we are going to see a Kayle ban if this game does go into a next game. Fizz has not been the problem here. It's the fact that Zyra just can't shut Fizz down. And Kayle's been the real trouble, as her ultimate has made several real clutch saves. Looks like we are going to have Zyra completing her death cap, as we are going to have Caitlyn picking up Ezreal fairly shortly. Lichbane picked up by Fizz. Infinity Edge up on Ezreal. Jax has completed that Blade of the Rune King and not shown us what he's going to go for next. Likely something like a Warmongs. Possibly a Frozen Mallet would be good choices on him. Nunu has picked up a Kindle Gem in addition to the Sight Stone, while we do see Lulu with the Philosopher's Stone and likely building into the Kindle Gem. Looks like we do have Fizz ready to go down bottom as he's trying to set a trap. Let's see how it does go, but I do think they are spotted at by a ward at red, as we do see the wolf side having that ward, and Kayle will be taking a fair bit of damage, though I do think Nunu wisely backed up. He didn't want to pursue too far. That seemed like a little too good to be true, but Lee Sin will come in the area, and will he be able to get anything off? He does land it onto Ezreal, but Ezreal is able to jump away, and only Lulu's hit. The ultimate by Fizz does whiff, and Lee Sin is forced back, as Kha'Zix does in the area. He does get the slow on to Kayle, but Kayle will flash away. And that means that Jax will be getting free farm up top. A pretty good exchange there, as several flashes were burned on the Millenium side, for nothing really burned on the Wolves side. Wolves are up 1-0 in this best of 3 of Riot Season 3 European Qualifiers. And we are going to see Kayle just continue to farm. She's farming better than anyone in the game. Her ability to just AoE down the creep waves is incredibly powerful. Looks like Jax might be caught out here as he is hit by the root. Lee Sin going to jump in as well, land the slow. And Nunu will be able to keep Jax from doing anything really, as the combination of Lee Sin and Nunu slows are just going to be way too much for him. And this will be Jax going down, tying up the kill score, as we do see Kayle ultimate fly, and Jax is still going to go down thanks to the Kha'Zix slow. And Nunu Ice Blast reset by Kha'Zix means that Kayle is in trouble now. Her ultimate is not up, and there's just way too much slowing power. Beautiful play there by Kha'Zix coming in and snowballing, and that's what Kha'Zix does. He snowballs team fights, and he applies a lot of single target damage. And that's one reason why Kha'Zix is pretty much banned out this entire tournament. And this means Wolves are going to be able to push. They have taken a kill lead. They are slightly down thanks to towers, as we do see Zyra hit by the Fizz ultimate, though it does not do enough damage to bring her really low. Fizz could jump in and pick her off, but it would be very expensive to do so. As you see Kha'Zix jump forward and apply the slow to everyone. We are going to see the Wolf side back up. Fizz takes a good bit of damage from the Caitlyn ultimate. And I do think they're going to try and get Dragon off of this. A very good choice, which would even out the game yet again, as these teams have been neck and neck the entire time. A beautiful job by Wolves and Millenium, really showing what they can do this game. And it looks like Wolves has taken a slight lead after that, but it has been back and forth the entire time. Every time Millenium seems to take an advantage, Wolves come in and take a dragon. Millenium picks up a tower, Wolves takes another dragon. Wolves grab a kill or two, Millenium comes back with a kill or two. It's been a great game so far, and a great series as well, as both teams are incredibly evenly matched. We do see Kha'Zix finishing off the Black Cleaver. Lee Sin soon to have his Warmongs up, though it looks like he is going for a Runic Bulwark first. A pretty good choice, as there's a fair bit of magic damage coming out on the Millennium side of things, with Fizz, Kayle, Jax, Ezreal, and Lulu all doing significant amounts of magic damage. Nunu has picked up an Oracles, in addition to his Locket of the Iron Solari. Looks like Last Whisper soon to be picked up by Caitlyn, unless he decides to go for an Infinity Edge. Ezreal going for a Zeal up next, as the Wolf side of things wants to try and get some Dragon control, or Baron control at this point in time, as a little bit of extra Baron control is exactly what they need this game. Looks like we do have Fizz going for the Zhonya's Hourglass next. Not sure exactly what Kayle wants to pick up. Could be going for the Nashor's Tooth, as she has picked up several components of that. Looks like we are going to have more wards taken out by Wolves, and a wise decision by them to group up as 5 at this point, as they have been picked off several times. fact that Fizz and Kayle have so much single target damage. It looks like they are going to be just trying to pick up this turn in the mid lane, and it will be taken down, giving Millenium the gold lead again as Jax does jump in, gets the stun on just Lee Sin as he is rooted out by Zyra. Ultimate from Fizz does go in, it does land onto Nunu, but Nunu does flash away. Ezreal does finish him off, but Nunu traded for Fizz as Kha'Zix jumps in, and it will be a dead Jax as Caitlyn picks him off the back end, and Wolves is looking to push as they do come forward. Slow does land onto Ezreal, and it looks like we do see Lee Sin coming up forward. He does flash, not in range of landing the slow onto Ezreal as he does just jump over the wall. Fairly good exchange in Millenium's favor as that tower was worth the extra kill, but I think if they killed the tower and just ran away, they would have gotten out safely. But they tried to make something happen with Jax jumping in, though a fair number of summoner spells were used there to prevent the Jax stun from hitting more people, and it looks like Caitlyn and Lee Sin are just going to go pressure the jungle a little bit, push the lanes out. The game is basically even at this point with less than 1,000 gold lead at the 24-minute mark. And this has really been a game for the ages as both teams have really traded blow for blow. It looks like Lee Sin might be caught out here as he is backing up and going to be just fine. It looks like blue steel is on the way for Kayle as we do see Lulu coming in as well. Question is, will they want to stay and fight? No, it looks like they do not. And it will mean Zyra will get her first blue buff of the game. If she had blue buff the entire time, she might have been able to deal with Fizz. But no such luck, as she's just not had the mana to continually harass him. And it looks like we are going to have Nashor's Tooth completed up onto Kayle. Lulu has picked up Shirley's Reverie. Kha'Zix getting fairly close to picking up his Mana Miura. And I do think once he picks that up, he'll have enough damage to really just burst down anyone he wants. He's done a great job in these team fights of jumping in, dealing a whole lot of damage, and not dying. As basically all the kills for Millenium have been focused on the Zyra. And that just shows how weak Zyra is in the mid lane at the moment. She's just very soft as a champion. Especially when you have someone like Fizz against you, who's great at destroying soft champions. Looks like we do have the Zeal completed up onto Ezreal. And we are going to have a bunch of Warmongs coming out as Kha'Zix does jump in here, landed a few hits onto Lulu. Lee Sin does jump in, land the slow onto Kayle as Jax jumps in from the side. We do have Fizz jumping in, and it will be Lee Sin going down with no other casualties. Jax getting fairly low. Fizz ultimate does land onto Caitlyn as he will be doing a whole lot of damage, and that means Kha'Zix does go down. Jax getting fairly low as Zyra's low as well. She does flash away, and this will be a team wipe in the favor of Millenium. That's exactly what they needed. And they should be able to push down an inhibitor. I don't think they have enough time to win the game. But Zyra will be able to live that fight. And everyone from the Millenium side of things is very low. If someone from Wolves had just bought a single item before that, they might have been able to turn it around. But they didn't. And Millenium picks up a much needed win. And a much needed inhibitor at this point in time. As it will mean they can take control of both jungles again. And what was once an even game is now a 3,000 gold lead in Millenium's favor thanks to the tower and a big team fight win. We are going to see Phantom Dancer completed up onto Ezreal as he does lead the way in terms of CS and has done a great job of finishing off kills in that last fight. Zhonya's Hourglass picked up by Fizz, and it looks like we are going to see the Wolves team just run straight for Baron. No real regard for what's in the area, as it looks like they might try and bait something out here, though the entire team from Millenium is in the area and are spotted out thanks to a well-placed ward at the red buff. Pink ward does go down, but no such luck of finding a fight, as this would be a pretty decent fight for Wolves to take, as they do see everyone right in the area. Millenium is going to run across several wards, and Fizz is trying to get in there as Jax does jump in. Zyra gets fairly low, does throw out the ultimate, as we do see Jax getting very low and will be shielded by Kayle. And it looks like everyone from Millenium is going to be fairly low and forced to go back. Zyra is the only casualty so far as Kha'Zix does jump in. Gets Ezreal very slow, but they will not have enough to pursue. Looks like Ezreal will be hit by the Kate's ultimate, and he does get the shield from... I'm not sure he got a shield from. He did get a slight shield, but it looks like it might have been just a Kayle heal. And it looks like Wolves are going to be going for Baron with everyone on the Millenium side of things very low. and they should have enough damage to do this before the two main damage dealers come back. They do have home guard, so they can get there fairly quickly, but the damage coming out of Caitlyn and Kha'Zix should mean this Baron does go down to them, but no, Kayle will be just in the area, and it looks like they're continuing to do it, and the question is, will they be forced back? And it looks like they are, as they just couldn't finish it off. They didn't have the damage, and Zyra has just respawned, though it does keep Millenium from actually doing it themselves, though it looks like they are going to go for it, as it means Wolves will have to go pursue it. They do have clear and complete vision of it, and this Baron will be going down very quickly thanks to the attack speed buff of Ezreal, and it looks like we are going to have Caitlyn doing a whole lot of damage as Zyra does come across, doing a whole lot of damage to Ezreal. Ezreal getting very low and exhausted, and it means Fizz is going to be taken out before the fight even begins. Nice block by Lee Sin there on the Fizz ultimate. Nunu getting fairly low, but Jax will be hit by the Kayle ultimate. Lee Sin jumping away, and the entire team of Millenium is very low, and Caitlyn is just cleaning up this team fight as she does pick off Lulu, and the only survivor is Ezreal, and this back and forth game continues with Wolves winning that team fight, and the game should be perfectly even afterwards, as Millenium is just lost that team fight thanks to the fact they had the Baron debuff. If they had a little more damage, they would have been able to finish off Lee Sin and Nunu and possibly snowball that to a victory. But the Baron does reduce your damage just slightly, and that just little bit was enough for the Wolves team to pick it up, and the Wolves has taken the lead by less than 1,000 gold, less than 500 gold, and it has just been an absolute treat as we do see Zyra picking up that Void Staff. We do see Lee Sin finishing off the Runic Bulwark. Likely going to see a Shirley's Reverie up on Nunu fairly soon. Infinity Edge completed on Caitlyn. And Caitlyn really cleaned up in that last fight. She got to sit back and auto-attack the entire time. And that's something you just can't have happen, especially when she has that Blood Boil buff on her. And it means she does a ridiculous amount of damage. Lee has picked up another Giant's Belt. Kha'Zix is getting closer and closer to that Manamura. As soon as he picks that up, he should have enough damage for the Wolves to snowball this away, as they don't have anyone really tanky enough to deal with him. They have Jax, and they have whoever they get hit with the Kayle ultimate, but that is just not enough. We do see Ezreal having picked up the Infinity Edge and Phantom Dancer, likely going to go for a Bloodthirster or Last Whisper next, and Wolves will be picking up another dragon this game, as I do believe they picked up every single one. Fizz still sitting on that Zhonya's Hourglass and Lichbane, as we do have Kayle picking up a whole lot of attack speed with the Zephyr and Nashor's Tooth, in addition to the Spirit Stone. Jax likely going for a Warmongs and should have that up at any point now. Kha'Zix has completed his Warmongs and looking to just tank it up at this point in time. They have enough damage coming out from everyone else if they can protect Zyra and Caitlyn. And let's see what's going to happen here, as both teams are almost perfectly even. Wolves has a very slight lead, but at this point in time, anything less than 5,000 or 6,000 gold is virtually nothing. Both teams are going to be running around the map, as we do see the inhibitor respawning for the Wolves side of things. And I'm almost surprised they just don't roam up top and pick off those two towers. I think they can get them for free, and that's a large amount of extra gold for no real cost to them. Looks like Kha'Zix has actually chosen to evolve his ultimate this game, looking to tank it up instead of picking up damage, as he didn't go for the extended claws. A real interesting choice out of him, and I'm not sure exactly why he did it, other than the fact he has to go deep every single time. They don't have a way to get at the back line of Ezreal really effectively. They have Lee Sin, but Lee Sin is basically going to be a zoning tool along with Nunu to help the squishy back line of Wolves stay alive. And it looks like Wolves will be making the right decision here and is pushing down this top tower. There's no way in the world you're going to want to defend this top tower this late into the game. Past about 20 to 25 minutes, these outer towers mean absolutely nothing, and it looks like we are going to see Millenium rotating down through the mid lane, and they are going to look to start something, as we do see the Wolves team backing up right away. They are just bull rushing this bottom lane. Ezreal ultimate does fly and will stop Kha'Zix from going back. The question is, can Caitlyn prevent them from taking this inhibitor? And I don't think she will, as we do see Jax in the way back, and Lee Sin coming out with home guard. He does get hit with the Fizz ultimate and taken fairly low. But there's just a lot of damage coming out from Caitlyn as she does jump forward. and she will not be able to do anything, as the slow from Lulu just slows her down enough. And that was a great decision, is that top tower was primed to go down, but they had to back up and were not able to secure it. And that was a great decision by Millenium. They decided to say, hey, they're going to take that top tower, we're going to try and get something for it, and they did. The only problem is they're very low on mana, are going to be forced to go back to base, which means this inhibitor tower is not long for this world, especially once that minion wave comes up. But the home guard boots really paying off for Fizz and Kayle here, as it allowed them to get back into the fight just in time. Though the Warmongs are healing up Kha'Zix and Lee Sin fairly well, as Kayle is doing a fair bit of damage to this Lee Sin, and the Baron buff doing an amazing job. Jax is going to be jumping in this fight. He jumps right on Caitlyn as Caitlyn flashes away perfectly in time, and Caitlyn is in a whole lot of trouble as Fizz does tap the Zony's Hourglass, but a beautiful exhaust comes out, and Caitlyn is able to just sit in the back and shoot the entire time. Not something Millenium could do, as they just didn't have the damage to finish her off. Fizz not doing enough, as the Caitlyn ultimate will fly and finish Fizz off, and Wolves are looking to push the first inhibitor of the game. And that's just something you can't have in these team fights. Caitlyn not dying. Caitlyn was able to sit back the entire time and auto attack. They got on her, but just did not have the damage to finish her off. Fizz needed just a little bit more, and they could have killed her. But no such luck. And with her living, Millenium is in a lot of trouble, and is now down 4,000, where they were up 3,000 just a few seconds ago. And that will be the inhibitor going down. Without Jax and Fizz to try and kill this Caitlyn, there is no real chance for the Millenium side of things taking a fight. Baron buff has just expired off of the Wolf side of things at the end of that fight. And it looks like they will be backing up and going to just push out these lanes, as top and bottom lane are pushing heavily onto the Wolves base. Super minions will be duking it out in the mid lane, as both teams have their middle inhibitor down. It looks like Lulu is trying to run up and catch someone out, as we do see the bottom tower going down to the large stack of minion waves. And the game is still pretty close. It's 3,000 gold difference. At 35 minutes, Baron's going to respawn in about a minute's time, and we are going to likely see an engagement for there. Kha'Zix about to complete Manamura, and they've just not been able to kill Caitlyn on this Millenium side of things. They've gotten so close multiple times, but Zyra's been there for a clutch root or an ultimate. Nunu's had that exhaust played perfectly, and we're going to take a quick replay of the last fight, as we do see, look at that, watch Caitlyn the entire time. Not really pressured, backing up auto attack, but not pressured enough that she has to run. She just sat back there and auto attacked the entire time, and that was the key to success there. They shielded her perfectly with a Nunu ultimate, the exhaust, and all the protection she had. Beautiful play there by the Copenhagen Wolves, and an excellent team fight by them. And it looks like we are going to see some last whispers coming out soon, as we do see Baron up. We do see Kayle caught out just a little bit by some of the poke, as we are going to see the teams just vie for Baron. Looks like Fizz wanted to jump in onto Caitlyn, but just not an opportune time. And I do think the Wolves need to wait for the exhaust to come up onto Nunu. And it looks like Nunu will be building Zeke's Herald. A real good item that's just not been utilized enough these tournaments. It gives it free attack damage and free lifesteal, and it's just such a good item to really snowball a team ahead. Looks like we are going to see a Giant's Belt come out on Fizz, so he can pick up a little bit more life. Warmongs completed up onto Jax. We are going to see Kayle picking up the Spirit of the Elder Lizard, which should get her a bit more damage. Ezreal has gone for the Last Whisper, even though there is not a whole lot of armor coming out on the Wolf side of things. I'm not sure how much damage Last Whisper is really going to add, and compared to something like a Black Cleaver. Looks like Ezreal is slightly caught out by Kha'Zix, but not enough to really do anything. And both sides are still fighting in this mid lane, neither one wanting to give up any position. Zyra and Fizz can both go down bottom and push, should they so choose, as that would be a good decision by Fizz, as Fizz can beat Zyra in a fight and then teleport in. Looks like we are going to see Copenhagen Wolves starting on Baron. No, they decide not to. Just going to clear out all the wards. And we are going to have both teams just backing up, waiting for trying to have something happen. Zyra narrowly dodging that Mystic shot by Ezreal, and Fizz is going to continue to push down bottom. Inhibitor has respawned on the Wolves side. And Fizz is looking to take those inhibitors if the Wolves try to do Baron. He can easily teleport into the fight as Kha'Zix does jump in. He does pop his ultimate. And I'm not sure how effective he's going to be in this team fight without it, as he really needs it to stay alive. And I think the Wolves side of things are just going to back up and try and destroy Fizz here. Zyra has been slightly caught out, but a nice use of her roots. Her ultimate going down as well for a whole lot of damage. She does flash away, as she will be likely be taken down by Fizz, as she's just not in the right position. Though she did do a whole lot of damage, and she will be able to pick off Lulu thanks to the Caitlyn ultimate. And not actually a bad trade there, as Caitlyn and Nunu do have the ability to do a whole lot of damage. And Zyra did a lot of damage before she died. That was the big difference compared to when she's died in the early game. She did a lot of damage. She means Jax and Kayle both very low. And Caitlyn's not going to go down here. She has completed a Warmong. She's going to be strong enough to just stay in this fight for the entire time. And it looks like we are going to see Millenium make their last stand at this Baron buff. Though they are spotted out and get slowed. Lee Sin does jump in and get a nice slow onto both Ezreal and Fizz. As we do see Kha'Zix jumping in on Ezreal, and Ezreal will be going very low. The Ignite, not enough damage, though Kha'Zix will go down. Caitlyn does finish off Jax. And both sides are not in good shape, though Caitlyn is alive, and that's the good news for Millenium. Caitlyn taking a lot of damage from this Kayle, as Lee Sin and Nunu are just sitting there waiting to back her up. Lee Sin could jump in at any point, but he decides not to. The inhibitor for the red team has respawned as Caitlyn jumps in for a whole lot of damage. Zyra teleports in and finishes off Kayle. And this Caitlyn has done an amazing job all game long of applying pressure, and it looks like they are just going to rush this inhibitor. I don't think they can finish the game off at this point, as Fizz will do enough damage to kill off Lee Sin or Nunu should a fight arise. And Lulu will be harassed enough to finish off Caitlyn. But they do have a whole lot of super minions. That's a lot more super minions than I thought. And it looks like Wolves will be trying to push for the end of the game, as Lee Sin will be taken down here by Fizz with no real contention. But with Fizz's abilities down, Caitlyn can just blow these turrets up. And it looks like they will be finishing the game. Wolves taking the series 2-0. Though it looks like they are going to have a little bit of fight left in them, as Millenium has gotten very low, and Millenium will be able to finish it off. Yes, Millenium does finish it off with a triple kill by Fizz. And they are actually able to defend their Nexus. This game will continue, though Kha'Zix will be able to defend his base should something arise. And there are just too many super minions in here for Millenium to really push. I thought Wolves had enough damage to finish it off, but apparently I was wrong, as Jax respawned just in time. Looks like we are going to have Kha'Zix going to go try and steal the blue buff away, as he probably can at this point, or likely backdoor even, as he could just jump over the wall. But I do think there's a ward in the area, and he will be spotted out. Yeah, I think they recognize where he is. He sees what's up, and will just be able to run away from Kayle here thanks to the jump and pop of his ultimate. Though that does buy his team more time to respawn, as Caitlyn still has a fair bit of time on her. Same thing with Zyra. And it's only a 4,000 gold lead in favor of Wolves here, and soon to be about 3,000 after Millenium takes their first dragon of the game. Looks like we are going to have a Nashor's Tooth or a Zephyr up onto Jax fairly soon. I think a Zephyr would be a good choice here. He just needs that little bit of CC reduction, as he just can't get to the back line through all the slows. We do see Zeke's Herald picked up by Nunu. An absolutely amazing choice, as it benefits virtually everyone on his team. Lee Sin finishes off his Warmongs, and Last Whisper up on Kha'Zix. Still no mana Miura up on him. I'm really surprised he hasn't finished it off yet. And it looks like Wolves did see Ezreal down bottom, which means they are going straight for this Baron. There are no wards on Baron for the Millenium side of things. And they do see the entire Millenium side fairly far away. And that means Baron will be taken down without any contention. Beautiful play there by Wolves. And Wolves is still only at a 3,000 gold lead. 42 minutes in, it's a 3,000 gold lead. It is anyone's game still, though Wolves do have a slight advantage here, as they do have the inhibitor already down and have a little bit more damage on their AD carry. Not a whole lot, but just slightly thanks to the Blood Boil of Nunu. Looks like we are going to see just a lot of poke coming out, though the poke war does favor Wolves at this point, thanks to the fact they do have the Baron buff. Fizz ultimate does come out onto Kha'Zix as Kha'Zix jumps back and gets 3 people hit by it. Caitlyn as well, and Caitlyn will be able to just sit back and fire the entire time. Fizz does jump in there and does not pick her off, as she does have too much lifesteal, and this will be good game for Millenium, as they just were not able to execute that team fight well enough, and they do not pick off Caitlyn in the end. Ezreal is the only survivor, and he's doing a good job of protecting the base, but the Ice Blast will finish him off from long range. And beautiful job by Caitlyn in every single one of those fights, and the entire Wolves side for protecting her. She lives just barely every single time. An absolutely beautiful game, with a lead never going more than about 4,000 gold. Thank you for watching Games Cast by PanderNyrl. For more commented games, please visit my YouTube and stream channels.